Self-sufficiency is a wise thing to do these days. If you're going to spend $500,000 on a home with land, well, then it better help pay the bills. But if you don't know what you're doing, trying to support yourself with minimal help from others can lead to great stress. However, people will have realized you don't have to find 20 abandoned acres in order to produce a little bit of food and energy. All you need to do is get over your fears and learn some new skills. It's not that hard. How long have you been dreaming of dying? How long have you been dreaming of putting land to work? And more importantly, what is keeping you from doing? Fear? Write in the comments what you're actually afraid of, or let's get a discussion going. First thing we're going to talk about is what you need, and we're going to focus on food. Failing to plan is planning to fail. So the first thing I want you to do is ask yourself, what do you really need? We're going to focus on food because that's an area where you can help grow and offset your cost. For us, we have a lot of vegetables every week. We eat lettuce, tomatoes, peppers, potatoes. We also like meat. We have beef, chicken, and pork, and sometimes fish. And we like to have lots of snacks, carrots, figs, pears. I want you to make a list of all the things that you like to eat weekly, or maybe that's bi-weekly, or maybe monthly, whatever it is. Write down what you're looking for in terms of food replacement and make a list. And then, after you've done your brainstorming, we're gonna take it to a spreadsheet. Look, I know it's tempting to want to skip this part, but it's really important and will help set your whole plan in motion. So here's what I'm talking about. Back in May of 2017, fresh blueberries were $2.98 and I pay $4.26 now. Here's a bunch of bulk items, but look at the price of chicken, $7.96 to $11.38. That's huge. Look at spaghetti sauce. You could make your own spaghetti sauce from tomatoes and some seasonings. Beans might be tricky, but you could do some of that. Coffee's gonna be hard. Coffee prices are way up. Look at orange juice and eggs. Look at the price difference in eggs. And that's comparing the generic basic eggs to generic basic eggs. Wow. Aside from the crazy high cost due to inflation, wouldn't it be nice to know just where some of your food comes from? But if you can do some things to lower your costs, like grow your own vegetables and maybe your own eggs and meat, it really might make it worth it, because it's a lot of work, even if you love doing it. And you're gonna have to invest a little bit of money as you go. According to the Courier-Gazette, your primary investment will be vegetables. Can you grow 400 pounds of vegetables? They used the example of Roger, who in 2008 grew 834 pounds of vegetables for a total value of $2,431 for replacement costs at the farmer's market. But how much space do you really need in order to get the kind of crops you're looking for? The same article goes on to explain that each crop you can plant in your own vegetable garden, adjusting the amounts depending on your likes and your dislikes. With good soil and close planting, you might estimate a conservative yield about 1 pound per square foot. So a 400 square foot garden, just 20 by 20, you can grow enough veggies for yourself. So that means for a family of 2, you might only need a 40 by 40 garden. Or for a family of 5, you might need a 100 foot by 100 foot garden. Or for a family of, whew, got it. For planting and location and all what to do in that regard, you'll have to stay tuned for another video, but trust me, there are some wonderful resources out there. So the reality is you probably don't need as much land as you thought you did, but that places a huge importance on the land that you get. Finding the right land or property that you're looking for is going to take longer than you think, and you're going to feel like a detective. And don't be surprised when the common homestead areas you're looking in have high prices. Be sure to understand the difference between climate and weather. You don't want a place that's too hot, a place that's too cold, or a place that's too wet. What you're truly looking for is called the land unicorn, with the right size, the right amenities, and the right kind of weather. But please be considerate of your neighbors and look at the surrounding properties before you buy. Don't do what I did and show up with a bunch of loud animals and be annoying. Some breeds of geese and ducks and donkeys and horses and chickens can be really loud. Don't show up with a bunch of loud power tools that make them want to say, So the moral of the story is be a good neighbor. We could talk about location and amenities forever. Look at all the water that's out here. But if you're not going to be a good neighbor, then what's the point? You don't need to be looking for huge amounts of land, because you can probably get away with 1, 2, maybe 3 acres at max. But you need to be very thorough in your search for land when you're going to start a homestead. So if you need someone to help you investigate a potential homestead of any size, in the top comment on this video, you'll see a link to my Calendly. Grab a slot and let's meet, because I actually am connected with agents all over the country who are pros at this sort of thing. It's a specialty, you know. So a big part of the homestead life is animals. I'm in my rain gear today because I'm out working. Animals are important if you're looking for meat or dairy or eggs, or if you're looking for some kind of replacement. They're also a part of the regenerative gardening process and the regenerative agriculture. Having chickens that go and poop in the yard and make a mess helps with the fertilization, and they eat bugs. It helps grow, and if you've got other animals, you can do manure, or goats take care of things like poison oak or poison ivy. Having animals can be a great thing, but you're gonna need to know a couple of things. First off, large animals need large spaces. So if you do wanna get a couple of head of cattle, you're gonna need several acres. This is not the type of homestead we're talking about in this video. It's a little bit different. Goats don't need that much space, but they do need a good shelter, and they also can be impacted by predators. Once growing up, we had actually dogs kill one of our prized dairy goats. It was really sad. That was not much fun, but I'll tell you, the goats themselves were a lot of fun. Having babies was a lot of fun. Bottle feeding the babies was a lot of fun. Getting up early in the morning to milk the goats was not a lot of fun. Sheep are really as dumb as people say. You'll be chasing them around. There's a reason why many cultures around the world really revere sheep or lamb. It's because it's so good. It's amazing. It can also provide you wool. Pigs are great, but pigs are a lot smarter than you think and a lot smarter than people tell you about. So be careful with that. And when they get out, that can be a nightmare scenario. They're a lot faster than you think, and they can be a lot harder to catch than you might imagine. Another thing, of course, to think about with pigs is they can be messy and smelly and create an odor problem, and that can be tough if you have neighbors. But relatively speaking, they don't need that much room, and who doesn't love good bacon or fresh pork? Imagine if you had your own St. Louis style pork style ribs coming off the grill.
Mmm, so good and tasty.
I mean, that's amazing, right? So pork is an amazing meat, not for everybody. You know, not everybody loves pork. More popular items, it seems, these days are ducks and geese. Ducks can be great, and in fact, in some ways, they can be better than chickens because their dual-purpose nature can be stronger. You can find breeds of ducks that are better layers than chickens, meaning they lay more eggs and they lay more consistently. You also can find ducks that are great for meat. And in fact, there's one breed of duck called the Muscovy duck that's amazing meat. It's also great for doing its own breeding, and they're just a really interesting animal. They might not be the prettiest to look at, but they're amazing. Geese can be awesome. Go to the store and try and buy an organic goose right now. The price would be astounding. The ratio of male to female, both in ducks and geese, is important. If you have too many males, things not good. Not good for the females, but it's also not good for the males. That's an important aspect. Goose eggs are very large though, and so it's hard to find like regular egg cartons. And so if you're going to resell or even give your eggs to other people as a blessing for them, those can be tricky and off-putting for some people. And when you get a huge double yoker from like an African goose, oh my goodness, those things are massive. Make it easier to get quiche because you only have to use 2 or 3 eggs maybe.
Come on, funny is funny.
Perhaps the most popular animal of late, especially for the homestead, are chickens. Chickens are great because they are relatively low cost. You can raise chickens in a relatively small space, and they do lay eggs that we're familiar with. Whether you're looking for ducks, geese, or chickens, I highly encourage you to get a standard breed. Yes, you can go down to the local food store and get some chicks. It seems like they're everywhere. But here's the thing, the genetic line is not as strong as what we call heritage breeds, which means you're gonna get some weird side effects, legs or combs or wings or egg laying problems. A chicken with an egg laying problem is really sad. and it's just not good. However, you can go on, you can find people who do heritage breeding of chickens, ducks, and geese relatively easy. The American Poultry Association has a great website. You can go and you can find breeders and you can contact them and get the breed that you're thinking about. This, in my opinion, is the way to go. These animals are often more tame, more controlled, and the genetic line is just better. At the end of the day, it might be a little bit more money, but I think it's worth it because it's less headache and because you're gonna get a more consistent, better chicken. If you're looking to get one of these breeds, maybe you'll find somebody who's nearby you, but if not, you can actually have hatching eggs shipped to you and they'll arrive in a nicely packed carton, and then you can open them up and put them in the incubator and you can hatch them. In fact, we're gonna do that on this show as well. It's a lot of fun. It's good for the family. It's kind of a birds and bees talk moment as well. However, I will say that there are some myths out there and some misconceptions, especially around space. Chickens need some space. Now, this is from the American Poultry Association. Here's what they have to say.
If you grow birds in cramped conditions, you are not going to reach the genetic potential that these birds have. But then you need to allow those genetics to express themselves well, and that requires feeding facilities. If you don't have feeding facilities, you can have the best genetics in the world, and you're never going to realize the maximum potential that your birds have, their genetic potential, because the birds are growing up cramped, they're stressed, they're picking on each other, and they just aren't going to reach their genetic potential.
You're going to want to make sure that when you do get chickens, you understand that an egg chicken is much different than a meat chicken, just like a dairy cow is much different than a beef cow. For meat chickens, it's a little bit different. There's new things like a Red Ranger and maybe a Jolly Rancher and a White Knight, or I don't know. There's all kinds of interesting new chicken breeds out these days. But the tried and true is the Cornish cross, and it's tried and true for a reason. Number one, the Cornish game hen, you've heard of those, have a really nice, tight, compact meat. Again, it's a breed, right? However, it doesn't necessarily get that large, so they figured out if they cross it with a Plymouth Rock chicken, you're gonna get some really great meat. They'll grow very quick. You only need to have them for 6 or 7 weeks. We're gonna have some here on the show soon. But it's important that you understand that it's a much different type of chicken. There's the meat chicken and there's the egg chicken. There's lots of options for animals. You're gonna wanna think about that before you go looking for land, because if you need 20 or 30 acres for cattle, well, guess what? Start looking for 20 or 30 acres for cattle. But if you don't, you can get away with a much smaller space. You don't need 20 abandoned acres. However, I will tell you, it will be tricky to find properties that are zoned between 1 acre and 5 acre, because it's very common for places to zone at 1 acre or at 5 acres. And there are zonings around the country that support farming exclusively, often called EFU. Or you might run into something called woodlot reserve, which is reserved for wood or timber, which means that you can't really clear a whole bunch of land. You need to be very thorough in your search for land when you're going to start a homestead. Take the time to find some books that will be helpful for you to study. This is my favorite book about gardening in our area. There are books about self-sufficiency, raising chickens, or one of my favorites, a book by Oregon native about raising ducks. Look at some images, really get some ideas and laugh, have fun with it. Go outside and really explore nature and think about things that you like to do. One of the things I like to do is watch this type of programming on PBS, or to go onto Google and look for master gardeners in my area. I also learn so much by going outside and going to farm tours and asking locals on what they do. It's also a good reminder to keep dreaming, to pick up the phone and to talk to some people who have been there before. Get some advice from your friends if this is something they think that you'll be good at. But most of all, remember that this wish and this dream should be fun, and it should be an adventure, and remember what it's all about. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it's been enjoyable. I'd love it if you'd watch one of these other videos. And as always, if I can help in any way, please reach out. You can find my information in the description of this video, or I'm sure you can just search me online.